Kelly started in traditional martial arts. He started with Kung Fu, karate, Taekwondo, moved into the Filipino things, silat, stick, all of the different Filipino martial arts, all connected together. And when those all ran together, when you run Kung Fu together with modern boxing and you connect Chinese staff work with Filipino stick fighting, eventually you see a common denominator of movement. And when you reach that common denominator of movement, like Bruce Lee said, everything flows together and you have to be like water. You have to seek that place where your opponent is and take advantage of it. And if you're locked into one system where you can only do one certain move, then you're too rigid and you can't adapt.
Reality fighting is essential to the martial arts, because you can get way too artistic about the martial arts and too far philosophizing the martial arts, then it loses its practical ability to defend oneself.
How do we put our tool together? That's why single direct attacks are so valuable. Ideally, are we ever going to stop with any one thing? We shouldn't. But at the same time, if we can make that attack in distance, disorientate him, how much range could I cover if I was like, hey, I don't need to throw in? And he's like, well, I could probably be pretty much over here. And he's still kind of disorientated. If that palm strike would have had any significant value to his eye socket, to his nose, then do I really need to maul him? No, and can I make that look like, hey, ah!
Well, the classical training that I've received, it's like learning classical piano. The whole thing is written out. They practice little pieces here and there, and perhaps you learn a lot of the little sensitivities to how to just hit the keynote correctly. But then when we come to, what Datu is bringing to the table is now jazz. It's totally different. You can have a classical piano player who's been playing for 20, 30 years professionally, and they have no clue how to have this flow and be able to create the music as you go. And that's what he brings to the table, is that he brings and shows you how you can flow through the techniques one to the other, and it's amazing, right? I love jazz and this whole flow of life, how to bring that into our martial art world. So does that say classical music's bad? No. What it complements it, right? It gives a whole different way of looking at music, right? So that's the same thing Datu's doing. He's bringing a whole different way to look at, the jazz of movement, right? The jazz of martial arts.
Well, if you look at brush, grab, strike or the form, you're looking at brush, grab, strike, and brush, grab, strike. And some people say, well, the practicality isn't there. Ian's right here, I'm just going to brush and strike. I don't have to go brush, grab. All I got to do is parry that and hit. Or I decide I'm going to seek him out, and I'm going to, instead of going brush, grab, strike, and leaving myself open for that right hand, that's the one. Brush, grab, strike. I'm going to seek that second hand. I'm going to brush, grab, strike. Now I'm moving over here.
I try to train other styles because I want to look at my previous training through a different lens, through a different set of eyes, not so much because I'm trying to complement or reinforce anything, but I've been able to look back at my traditional training with such new eyes, with such a freedom of movement, that the traditional training, some of the things that didn't make sense or I didn't understand or couldn't apply before, now have just opened up like flowers. It's hard to explain how I'll look at something I've been doing for years that I pounded my head against the wall trying to figure out what was I doing here. And after working with Kelly, I get it and it happens. And it happens almost immediately. I don't have to think about it. It's just there.